Alcoholic, and it is my pleasure and honor to introduce my dear friend Marina, who we met. We're trying to do math just now, and I'm not good at math, but maybe 2.5 years ago or so. And I've always respected and admired her story and her experience, and I'm really excited to hear more of her story this evening. She is someone I absolutely love and again, respect and admire, and I can't wait to hear your full story. So please welcome Marina.
Hi, I'm Marina. I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Marina.
Hi. The funny thing is I did this speaker meeting once, like around the time that we met, and I was the suspect for my aunt. I think it was around 18 months.
Yeah.
And I think somehow we missed the memo that the suspect was supposed to be a newcomer because I'm not totally a newcomer anymore, but that's okay. Because I was drinking and smoking and doing all of that for longer than I've been sober, so I think that still counts, right? Maybe. So I'm going to qualify myself first. I am an alcoholic and an addict, but alcohol was always my drug of choice. I have a sponsor who has a sponsor. I have some sponsees. My sobriety date is September 8th of 2020, so I have almost 4 years. We're getting there. So since I only have 15 minutes and I can really get going, I can talk. I like to hear myself talk. So I really want to I have a little cheat sheet. So I'm going to try and keep it here because I want to focus more on the strength and the hope and my experience there versus like the experience itself, right? Because I think a lot of us kind of know the drill. I think that the things that we did and the ways that we drank or what we used or all of those things differ from one another, but like the feelings and how miserable it got is kind of the same. But for me, I know that, well, one, I haven't done a speaker meeting in about 2 years, and so maybe a little over that. So thank you for asking me to speak and to be of service. But I always remember that when I did speaker meetings, I've only done a few, but I would always say that my worst day sober was better than my best day drinking. And I don't think that's true. Just like being completely honest, right? I think I would say that because I think that's what I wanted people to hear, or like I wanted people to think that I thought. But that's probably not true because sobriety has like not great days either, right? And like my drinking wasn't always miserable. It was okay for a minute. And I didn't really stop drinking because I hated drinking. The problem was that I liked drinking too much. And it got me into problems. It got me into bad situations, right? And then ultimately I did a bunch of other stuff and then that was bad. So I got sober because I knew that I couldn't live the life that I wanted to live drinking and using. And don't get me wrong, it definitely got miserable, right? Like I was very, very, very depressed and miserable towards the end. But I think it's a big statement to say that like my worst day sober was better than my best day drinking because I've been drinking for a while. And when I was 16, I was like, woo, this is so fun. But I can say that my sober days have been substantially and like unequally, I don't know if that's the right term, but my sober days have been substantially better than any okay days that I had when I was drinking, right? Anyway, like I said, I knew I couldn't live the life that I wanted to live drinking and doing drugs. And so I was escalating or progressing pretty quickly. And when COVID hit, it got really, really bad really fast, as I think it did for a lot of people who were still out and about doing their thing, because isolation and alcoholics don't mix very well together. So I didn't have anything to do besides drink and get sicker and sicker. And then I started doing drugs, which wasn't great either. Definitely not. And so that is when I really started to skyrocket, and then I was facing a bunch of consequences. And I feel grateful to God or higher power or whatever your preference is, that something that was not me spoke to me and basically said, like, if you don't go get help, your consequences are going to get worse and worse and worse and worse, and you're going to die. And luckily, I hadn't faced a ton of physical consequences. I had a bunch of emotional consequences, but I hadn't been to jail. I hadn't gotten any DUIs. I hadn't lost my job. I still had a car. I still had family, but I was headed that direction very quickly, and I didn't want to be there because I knew I wanted a lot more for myself. And so I took the leap, and when I was driving, I'll keep this part short because I really want to get into this strength and hope here. But I was out doing my thing, and I can't tell you how many times I drove drunk. Like, I was just driving drunk every time I was driving, so I was always drunk for like a long time. And so I don't know how I didn't get a DUI. And so I always tell myself that, like, if I were ever to get in a car drunk again, I would get arrested like so fast, because that would just be God being like, "Yep, you messed up." I almost caught myself. And so I was driving home, and I was super drunk, and I was doing that like one eye closed thing so I could like try and see the road clearly. And then I was like, I don't know, whatever it wasn't me that said like, you need to pull over right now. So I pulled over into a Bartels, and I went and got a couple waters, and I sat in my car, and I started looking up treatment centers. And the next, I think that was a Friday, and on Monday I was on an airplane headed to California. And it was a really great experience. I really loved treatment. I went to treatment twice. The first time was horrible, but I was 19 and I didn't want to be there. I was there because of a consequence. And this time was not that at all. I was very happy to be where I was and to be getting better. So treatment was good for me. I mean, there were rough times, don't get me wrong. Detox sucked, but it got good fast. I went to an all-women's center, and it was really great to be surrounded by other people who were women like myself. And so the biggest thing for me is when I got back from treatment. It was, like I said, I got sober at the beginning of COVID. So by the time I got back to treatment, I think I spent around 2 months in California. Everything was done, like locked down. Everyone was stuck in their houses. It was kind of like right after the peak of COVID. So everyone was still isolated. There weren't any meetings. Like, there were no in-person meetings. There's like one, I think, and it was outside. And I got sober in September, so I didn't want to go to a meeting outside, right? Horrible. And so the large majority of my early sobriety, I mean, I would say like the first 6 months probably, was all virtual in terms of meetings and connecting with people. And I did my best, right? Because the fellowship was important, but it's not anything like it is being in person. And so when things started opening back up, like I said, I think I had like 6 to 9 months, and I went back to in-person meetings. It was like everything. Like, I really needed that fellowship. It was very important to me. And that is what has kept me sober. I don't want to say that. That's part of what's kept me sober, right? Is like the fellowship and the connection with other people. Because if I had spent the last, I don't know, almost 4 years just continuing to do like the virtual thing, it wouldn't have worked for me. So for me, I'm going to kind of switch gears into the strength and hope part. For me, what's kept me sober is sponsorship, fellowship, and my higher power, who I like to call God. And so it's that kind of like triangle of community that continues to keep me sober. Without the fellowship and just like all the people I have around me, it would be really, really easy to not be accountable for my actions. And I could just like go off and isolate and sit on my couch, not do anything, and call it a work and not follow through with my responsibilities, because that's what my adult likes to do. It likes to sit on the couch and watch TV for like 4 days in a row, right? And with the fellowship around me and all of these awesome people, I can't get away with that kind of thing, because people will call me and people will text me, and I have responsibilities now, and it will be noticed. My absence will be noticed. Whereas previously, I hid, right? I was isolated. Nobody knew that I was around, really. So that was a really important piece for me. And it continues to be a really important piece. I think, and this is just my own experience, I'm just speaking for self, but in the 4 years-ish, don't want to like boost my own, I don't actually have 4 years yet, but in that close to, right, there's been some ebbs and flows in my program, right? There's some times where I'm just like going to a meeting every day and I'm really on my sponsor, and I got a bunch of sponsees, and other times life gets in the way a little bit, and I'm only going to a couple meetings a week, and kind of doing those things. And there was a period there a few months ago where I was in an ebb, and when I got back into the flow, it was just a very good piece of evidence that showed me how important being in the flow is, right? Versus like letting yourself ebb. Because I got crunchy and didn't even notice, right? And so I think that's like a really important piece of it. Um, so wow, 15 minutes goes fast. Okay. Okay, so I accomplished, or how do I want to phrase this? God, who I call my higher power, um, really allowed me this opportunity of sobriety to focus on building myself up, right? Building my confidence, building my self esteem, um, learning to love myself. And with that, I was able to get ambition that I never knew what that was, right? And like motivation to achieve things. And I didn't know what that was either. And so I don't say like these next things to like brag or like boost my ego. This is just the truth of what I have been able to achieve, right, while being sober, because I would not have had any of what I have now without the work that I had to put in to get it, right? And so in sobriety, I was able to go back to school. I was able to get my master's degree. I was working in a treatment center for a couple of years as a case manager. It was awesome. Now I'm a licensed therapist, which has been like the biggest gift that I have ever been given in my whole life. I'm going to tear up because it was just like so, it changed everything for me, right? And being able to like achieve those things when I didn't think that I was ever going to be able to do anything remotely like that with my life. I got out of a really unhealthy, toxic relationship, and I found like the love of my life in the rooms of AA. And it's the healthiest relationship I've ever been in or ever thought I could have been in, which is weird. I'm like, we don't fight? Weird. And we don't go to bed mad at each other? What is that? And, you know, I'm in a place where I feel financially stable. I have my relationship with my family and my relationship with my sister back, which is really important because we weren't speaking for a very long time. And through the ninth step in the amends process, I was able to gain her trust back and reconnect with her. And now I'm in a place in my life where, you know, we're talking about starting a family, right? And I never thought that that would have been something I would ever do either. I mean, I always knew I wanted to, but I never thought I'd be in a position to feel like I could, and like was excited, right, for the things that I have going. And it was a lot of hard work to get those things right. And I think the important part of like noting the accomplishments that we have made for ourselves in sobriety is realizing that being sober is what got us those accomplishments, right? And like, if I that is accountability in and of itself, because I know that if I were to go out and drink or use or even like smoke a joint, right, like those things that I worked really, really hard for would be gone really fast. Like within a few days, probably, knowing me, because like I wouldn't go to work. I would sit on my couch and I would drink and I wouldn't talk to anyone, and I would start fighting with my boyfriend for telling me that I needed to stop drinking, and I would stop talking to my parents, and I would, right, like it would just be this tumultuous thing. And knowing me, I'd get in a car and I'd drive and get arrested, right? And you can't exactly be a therapist with that on your record, right? People aren't going to hire you, and so it would just get really bad really fast. Um, so I've been able to build this really great little life for myself that I never really thought I would be able to create, and I really have to give like 110% of the credit to AA and my higher power, who I like to call God. Because without those things and without a program, I wouldn't be able to show up as the person I get to show up as today. Right? Like it's a Saturday. I wanted to stay on my couch and like tan in the backyard. I didn't want to like drive all the way to Seattle, right? This is like a 15-minute drive for me, right? I was like, oh my God, so far away. I have to get ready, right? And the program teaches me and gives me responsibilities, right? Of like, oh yeah, okay, like I committed to something, so I need to show up. I need to show up for somebody. I need to follow through with my commitments, which is really important for me because, like I said, my addict loves to just like sit on my couch and do absolutely nothing. And so things that get me into the contrary action of that is really important. Yeah, so I mean, I think that's it. I have like a minute left, and I don't want to get into another tangent or anything like that. But I will say that when I was first sober in my first like year or two, I would always like end a speaker meeting or like a share or whatever saying that like I'm still a little crazy and I'm still a little weird, but like I like my crazy and weird now, right? and I haven't spoke for a couple of years, right? I mean, I've shared meetings, but I haven't like spoke in a couple of years, and I was thinking about that, and I was like, you know what? I don't think that's true anymore either, right? Because like, yeah, I mean, I'm still a little crazy and it's still a little weird. Like, don't get me wrong, but I love that crazy and weird now, right? Like, I've gained that to be able to like look in the mirror and be like, you look good today, Marina. And I never thought I'd be able to say that to myself. So anyway, that's what I got. I really appreciate Sasha. Thank you for asking me to speak. I love being of service, and I got 10 seconds left, so that's it.